3 years ago, on a storm-ravaged night, he had ruthlessly thrown his 6-month pregnant wife out onto the street to welcome his mistress, ignoring her pleas as she knelt until her knees bled. But the laws of karma spare no one. The day he stood beaming, his arm wrapped around his lover's waist at the airport awaiting a multi-million-dollar partner, he froze, collapsing to the floor when he realized the queen stepping out of the Maybach was the same small-town wife he once cursed and left for dead. From the abyss of grief after losing her child, Mia was reborn. She returned as a powerful CEO, armed with a $70 million verdict to send her ex-husband's entire family to the dark prison of ruin. The sharp click of stiletto heels on the cold marble floor of the VIP lounge at Miami International Airport echoed like a hammer against a drum. Mia lowered her oversized sunglasses, revealing piercing, almond-shaped eyes, expertly lined and shadowed, holding no trace of the sorrow from 3 years prior. Less than 15 feet away, a man in a white suit had his arm around a young woman in a vibrant red dress, laughing boisterously. He leaned in and pressed his lips to the girl's cheek, a cheap, fawning kiss that Mia had once considered a priceless treasure. Mia didn't flinch. She walked straight towards them, the rich, complex fragrance of Le Labo Santal 33 radiating from her, easily overpowering the cloyingly sweet perfume of the other woman. As her shadow passed over them, the man instinctively looked up. The moment their eyes met, the smile on his lips froze, twisting into a grotesque grimace. He snatched his hand from his mistress's waist and stumbled back 2 steps, tripping over an expensive Louis Vuitton suitcase and nearly falling backward. "Mia," he stammered, his face drained of all color as if he'd just seen a ghost rise from the depths of the sea. Mia paused for only a second. She tilted her head, the corner of her mouth lifting in a pitying, half-smile. Then she continued walking, leaving behind a wake of panicked whispers and the shattering of a dead past. The golden December sun of Miami poured down on the lush green palm trees, but it wasn't enough to warm the chill in Mia's heart as she set foot in this city for the first time in 3 years. Her first-class flight from New York had landed on time. Mia adjusted the lapel of her cream-colored blazer, a bespoke piece tailored to perfection, accentuating her slender waist and the powerful aura of a successful businesswoman. She wasn't here for a vacation or to relive memories. She was here to collect on debts of blood and tears. Behind her, her assistant, Kevin, swiftly pulled a silver Rimowa suitcase, reporting in a low voice, "Ma'am, the car from Apex Global is waiting at the VIP exit. Mr. Harrison insisted on taking you to the Serenity Grand Resort to rest before the shareholder meeting tomorrow." Mia nodded slightly, tucking a loose, chestnut-brown curl behind her ear. "All right, Kevin, stick to the schedule. And please, double-check the guest list for tonight's gala at Sunset Point." "Yes, ma'am." The automatic doors of the VIP lounge slid open, and a rush of cool, air-conditioned air mixed with the faint, salty scent of the ocean breeze washed over her. Mia took a deep breath. 3 years ago, the smell of this ocean was the scent of despair and death. Now, it was the scent of rebirth. It was then that the revolting scene caught her eye. Ethan Hayes, her worthless ex-husband, was standing there. He was a little heavier than she remembered, a slight beer belly straining against his suit, his skin weathered from the sun on construction sites. But the white suit was a desperate attempt to look polished and suave. Beside him was Tiffany Monroe, the mistress who had destroyed her marriage, now draped in flashy designer brands, playing the part of a pampered wife. "Hurry up, honey, the sun is killing me. I don't want to ruin my skin," Tiffany whined, her voice so saccharine it made one's skin crawl. "Just a second, babe, I'm looking for the car." "Where the hell is that driver today?" Ethan grumbled, wiping sweat from his forehead, his arm never leaving Tiffany's waist. They were blocking the VIP exit, their luggage scattered carelessly. Mia strode forward, her presence as imperious as a queen's. She had no intention of causing a scene. Her time was money, not to be wasted on the unworthy. But fate, or rather, a cruel sense of irony, had forced them to meet at this very moment. When Ethan saw her and nearly fell, Tiffany quickly steadied him, frowning. "What's wrong with you? Watch where you're going." But Ethan didn't answer. His eyes were wide, glued to the woman before him. It can't be, Mia." In his memory, Mia was the daughter of a poor fishing family from the Keys. She was dark-skinned, perpetually smelling of salt and shrimp, her hands rough from mending nets. She always wore cheap clothes from the night market, flip-flops on her feet, her hair hastily tied in a bun. That provincial woman had once knelt at his feet, begging him not to abandon her and their child on a stormy night. But this woman, her skin was as smooth and white as pearl, her eyes deep and captivating, her lips a seductive, luscious red. The outfit she wore, from the blazer to the shoes to the handbag, he might not know every brand, but he knew its value was more than his entire annual salary. And most importantly, it was her aura, that cool, overwhelming presence, that made people afraid to look her in the eye. How could this be the Cinderella from the fishing village? You are?" Ethan stammered, his voice cracking. Tiffany now looked up, following his gaze. She froze. As a woman, she was more sensitive than anyone to beauty and threat. The woman before them was beautiful, dangerously and elegantly so. But why did her face seem so familiar? Mia paused, lowering her sunglasses to the bridge of her nose, revealing her sharp, piercing eyes. "Move," she said, her voice soft but as cold as ice. 3 words. Just 3 words, but they sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. The voice was more refined, more commanding, but the tone was one he could never forget. "Mia? You're alive?" he blurted out, the stupidest question in the world. Mia's lips twisted into a scornful sneer. "Were you hoping I was dead, Ethan?" The indirect confirmation struck Ethan like a lightning bolt. He stumbled back, his legs tangled. Tiffany, beside him, turned pale. You're his ex-wife." Mia didn't even spare Tiffany a glance. To her, a woman who stole another's husband and reveled in her pain wasn't even worth a look. "Kevin, clear the way," she commanded curtly. The handsome assistant immediately stepped forward, politely but firmly pushing Ethan and Tiffany's luggage aside. "Excuse me, you're blocking the VIP exit. Please make way for our director." At the same time, 2 airport security guards and a senior manager in a sharp uniform hurried over. The manager bowed deeply to Mia. "Miss Sterling, my sincerest apologies for this inconvenience. The Maybach is waiting at gate 1. Please, this way." Mia gave a slight nod and walked on, her grace and composure unshaken, the sound of her heels clicking rhythmically again. She left behind the couple, who stood frozen in the middle of the bustling airport terminal. Ethan watched his ex-wife's retreating back, then looked at the gleaming black Maybach waiting outside the glass doors. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Director of what? And a Maybach?" he muttered, his mind reeling. Tiffany gripped Ethan's arm, her sharp nails digging into his flesh. "What are you looking at? Lost your soul?" She probably just latched onto some rich old geezer to get a new life. What could a backwater hick like her ever accomplish? Though she spoke to reassure herself and belittle her rival, a formless anxiety was rising within her. The look in Mia's eyes just now, it held the promise of annihilation. Inside the luxurious car, gliding smoothly through the streets of Miami Beach, Mia leaned her head against the window, watching the familiar rows of palm trees recede. Memories played back in her mind like a slow, cruel film. 3 years ago, in this same city, but in a squalid, damp apartment complex near the marina. "Just sign it. Stop making my son's life miserable, Sharon," Ethan's mother had said, throwing the divorce papers in front of Mia. At the time, she was 6 months pregnant, her belly swollen, her feet and hands puffy from standing all day cleaning fish to support her lazy in-laws. Ethan sat on the sofa, smoking a cigarette, his gaze averted. He didn't dare look at her. "Mom, I'm carrying your grandchild," Mia had sobbed, her hands protectively clutching her stomach. "Ethan, say something. We promised we'd get through this together." "Get through what? How much longer?" Ethan had snapped, his voice filled with frustration. "Look at you. You always smell like fish. You come home and all you do is complain about money. I'm sick of it." Tiffany is different. She can help my career. Her father is a major construction contractor. You're just a burden. His every word was a knife twisting in her heart. So, 4 years of marriage, all her sacrifices, were worth less than a nod from a contractor's daughter. But our child, get rid of it. Sharon had said coldly. "We can't afford to raise it. Sign the papers and get out. Tiffany is moving in soon. I don't want her to see your miserable face." That night, the sky opened up, a sudden tropical storm lashing the city. Mia was thrown out of the house by her husband and mother-in-law with nothing but a single bag of old clothes. She wandered aimlessly, the rain mixing with her salty tears. On a dark, winding coastal road, a truck lost control and came hurtling towards her. The blinding headlights, the screech of tires, and then a horrific impact. Mia was thrown to the side of the road, blood pooling in the rainwater at her feet. She writhed in agony, her hands still trying to shield her belly, her lips whispering, "My baby, save my baby." In her delirium, she saw Ethan's car pass by. He stopped, rolling down the window. She tried to lift a bloody hand to beg for help. He saw her. A flicker of fear crossed his eyes. But then, Tiffany, beside him, pulled his arm and said something. Ethan rolled the window up and sped away. He left her and their unborn child to die in the cold rain. Mia's world shattered in that moment. If it weren't for Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, a wealthy New York couple on vacation who happened to be passing by and rushed her to the hospital, she would have truly died. Her baby, her little angel, did not survive. The doctors said the impact was too severe, compounded by her long-term physical exhaustion. Mia woke up from a 3-day coma. When she learned she had lost her child, she tried to jump from the hospital roof, but Mr. Sterling stopped her. "Dying is easy, my child," he had said. "But the ones who hurt you are still out there, living and laughing. Can you accept that? If you die, your child will be a lost soul, and you will just be another forgotten grave. Live, live to stand above them all." Those words resurrected Mia's dead soul. The Sterlings adopted her, taking her to New York for treatment and education. She changed her name, her appearance. She learned business. She learned about pearls, the Sterling family's legacy. She threw herself into work, 18 hours a day, swallowing her tears, turning her pain into ambition. From an uneducated girl from a fishing village, she became Chloe Sterling, the rising pearl queen in the jewelry world, and the holder of a 30% stake in the new Serenity Grand Resort, soon to be opened in Miami. "Ma'am, we've arrived." Kevin's voice pulled Mia back to the present. She opened her eyes, their gaze now calm and still as a deep lake. The car had stopped before the main entrance of the most magnificent 6-star resort on South Beach. The manager and his staff were lined up to welcome her. Mia stepped out of the car, a perfect, professional smile on her face. "Welcome home, Miss Sterling." She shook the manager's hand, her eyes scanning the grand architecture. Tomorrow, at the grand opening gala, she knew that Monroe Construction, Tiffany's father's company where Ethan worked, would be present as a subcontractor. "Kevin, send a VIP invitation to Mr. and Mrs. Monroe of Monroe Construction. Make sure to specify that their daughter and son-in-law are also invited," Mia instructed, her voice laced with a dangerous edge. "You're planning—" Kevin hesitated. "I want them in the front row. I want them to see clearly where the person they once trampled upon is standing now." Meanwhile, in a modest 3-star hotel not far away, Ethan collapsed onto the bed the moment he entered the room, sweating profusely. The image of Mia at the airport haunted him. It can't be. That girl is dead. "Maybe it's a twin sister?" he muttered, his hand trembling as he lit a cigarette. He remembered the accident 3 years ago. He knew he had abandoned her. Afterward, he'd heard rumors about a pregnant woman who died in a hit-and-run on the coastal road, her body unclaimed. He was certain it was Mia. Cowardice had stopped him from confirming it, from even setting up a memorial. He had only secretly lit a few sticks of incense at a crossroads and tried to forget. Tiffany emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped loosely around her. Seeing her husband's dazed state, she kicked his leg in annoyance. "Are you still thinking about that ghost? I told you. It was probably just someone who looks like her. There are billions of people in the world. It's normal for people to look alike. But the voice, the eyes, and that little scar at the end of her left eyebrow, it's exactly the same," Ethan said, trembling. "Stop it! Don't try to scare me," Tiffany snapped, sitting at the vanity to apply a face mask. "And who cares who she is? What's important is that at the Apex Gala tomorrow, my dad has arranged for you to meet the top executives. I hear the new investor from New York is a big spender. You'd better be on your best behavior. If you can land the furnishing contract for Phase 2, the vice president position is yours. The mention of his career brought a spark to Ethan's eyes, temporarily pushing his fear aside. That's right. He was now the son-in-law of a major construction company's director. His future was bright. An old, provincial ex-wife, whether she was alive or had struck it rich, was still just a woman. He was a man with a solid backing. What was there to be afraid of? I know. I'll wear the new blue suit you bought me tomorrow. I'll definitely make it worth your while, Ethan said, getting up to embrace his wife, trying to curry favor. That's more like it, Tiffany said with a smug smile. But it's strange. I heard the airport staff call her Miss Sterling, but they also called her Mia. Could it be the same name? They looked at each other, and a brief silence filled the room. The next morning, the grand opening gala for the Serenity Grand was held outdoors on the windswept shores of South Beach. The space was decorated with thousands of imported white roses and orchids, combined with the sparkle of crystal chandeliers, creating a fairy tale-like scene. The guests were all major figures in real estate, finance, and local politics. A line of supercars filled the parking lot. Ethan's family arrived in his father-in-law's Mercedes C300. His mother, Sharon, was also with them, dressed in a gaudy red velvet dress, adorned with so much gold on her neck and wrists she looked like a walking jewelry store. "My goodness, this resort is huge, Frank," Sharon marveled, her eyes wide with awe. "If our Ethan becomes an executive here, I'll be so proud." "Keep your voice down, Mom. People will laugh," Ethan whispered, adjusting his tie. He felt a little intimidated by the sheer luxury of the place. Tiffany, however, was more confident. She linked her arm with Ethan's, puffing out her chest as she walked the red carpet. "Just be confident. Dad said a representative from the parent corporation in New York is here today. They say she's a young, brilliant businesswoman. Her English name is Chloe or something." Chloe Sterling, Frank Monroe, her father, interjected. "This woman is no simple matter. She's only 28, but she's already taken over one of the biggest pearl conglomerates in the country. Your goal today, son, is to get close to her, offer her a drink, give her your business card." "Yes, sir, I understand." The family was escorted by a hostess to a VIP table near the stage. This surprised and delighted Frank. They must really respect the reputation of Monroe Construction to seat us so close to the front. Ethan felt a surge of excitement, looking around for his opportunity. At exactly 6 p.m., the soft music faded, and the stage lights blazed to life. The MC stepped out and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, and now it is my great honor to introduce the vice chairwoman of Apex Global, the founder of the Sterling Pearls jewelry brand, the woman known as the Pearl Queen, Miss Chloe Sterling, who will deliver the opening remarks." A thunderous applause erupted. From the side of the stage, a woman emerged. She was wearing a black evening gown studded with thousands of Swarovski crystals, a high slit revealing a long, slender leg. Around her neck was a string of priceless black Tahitian pearls, each one large, round, and glossy, reflecting the stage lights with a hypnotic allure. Her hair was swept up in an elegant updo, her makeup subtle yet powerful. The entire hall held its breath at the sight of such stunning beauty. But at table number 1, 4 people were frozen as if turned to stone. The wine glass in Ethan's hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Red wine splattered onto Tiffany's white dress, but she didn't seem to care. Her jaw was slack, her eyes wide as she stared at the stage. Sharon was speechless, clutching her chest, her face ashen. That ghost, Mia. On stage, under the brilliant spotlight, Mia stood before the microphone. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she let her gaze sweep across the room, finally settling, long and deep, on table number 1. Her eyes met Ethan's panicked stare, piercing through to his dark soul. She smiled, a beautiful smile, like a rose with poisonous thorns. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Chloe Sterling, but some of you may know me by my old name, Mia." Her voice, amplified by the powerful sound system, was clear and articulate, each word a death sentence for those below. Ethan felt the world spin. He gripped the edge of the table to keep from collapsing. The poor, ragged wife he had discarded like an expired product was now standing on the pinnacle of success, looking down on him as if he were an ant. The moment Mia finished speaking, it felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the grand ballroom. A heavy silence fell upon the hundreds of guests, so profound that the sound of the waves crashing on the shore outside became sharp and distinct. On stage, Mia remained, proud and regal like a goddess of vengeance. The spotlight illuminated her, accentuating the cold luster of the black Tahitian pearls. She didn't rush to descend, letting the silence torture the souls at table number 1. Below, Sharon trembled, her teeth chattering. She clutched the arm of her son-in-law's father, Frank Monroe, her red-painted nails digging into the expensive fabric of his suit. "Frank, is that really Mia? Or is it a ghost? I heard she drowned in the river." Frank irritably shook her hand off, beads of sweat forming on his brow. As a shrewd businessman, he didn't believe in ghosts. He only believed in money and power. And whoever the woman on stage was, she currently held the power of life and death over the project his company, Monroe Construction, so desperately wanted. "Shut up. What ghost? She's flesh and blood, right there." "We're ruined," he hissed through clenched teeth, turning to glower at his son-in-law. "Ethan, you explain this. You told me your ex-wife was some uneducated country bumpkin who died and disappeared. How is she now the vice chair of Apex? You've destroyed this entire family." Ethan sat there, his face completely drained of color. He looked at Mia, then down at his own trembling hands. The image of his pregnant wife, kneeling and begging him in the storm 3 years ago, overlapped with the image of the powerful woman on stage. The brutal contrast made his brain short-circuit. I don't know. Dad, I really don't know," Ethan stammered, his voice choked as if someone were strangling him. Tiffany, however, was different. Her initial fear was quickly replaced by a furious jealousy and envy. She stared at Mia's crystal-studded gown, at the priceless pearl necklace. Those things should have been hers, the darling daughter of a construction magnate, not that fish-smelling girl from the past. She definitely had plastic surgery. "And she must be sleeping with some old fossil in New York to climb this high," Tiffany hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "What are you afraid of? What's there to fear from a woman who sells her body to get ahead? Let me go expose her." Before anyone could stop her, Mia began to move. She descended the stage steps, the rhythmic, deliberate click of her heels amplifying the pressure in the room. The crowd parted for her as if she were a queen. She didn't walk towards the dignitaries or major partners. She walked straight towards table number 1. With every step she took, Ethan's heart pounded harder. He wanted to get up and run, but his feet felt nailed to the floor. Mia stopped directly in front of Ethan. The scent of Santal 33 once again enveloped him, rich and suffocating. She said nothing, simply taking a glass of red wine from a passing waiter's tray and swirling it gently. "Long time no see, ex-husband," Mia began, her voice as smooth as velvet but as sharp as a razor. "You look worse than I imagined. Life with the new wife must be hard." Ethan swallowed, forcing a smile that felt like cracking plaster. "Mia, when did you get back? Why didn't you let me know? After all, we were once husband and wife." "Husband and wife?" Mia let out a short, contemptuous laugh. "Are you even worthy of using those words? As I recall, 3 years ago, you and your mother threw me out like a bag of trash. Do you remember? It was raining so hard that night." She tilted the glass, the red liquid sloshing like blood. Her eyes darkened, boring into his soul. At this point, Sharon regained some composure. Her greedy, shameless nature took over. She thought that since Mia had once been her daughter-in-law, had served her like a queen, there must still be some lingering affection. Besides, seeing how wealthy Mia was now, if she could get back on her good side, she would surely benefit. Sharon scrambled to her feet, forcing a sycophantic smile, and reached out her gold-laden hand to grab Mia's. "Oh, my dear daughter-in-law, I knew you weren't dead." "I kept telling Ethan, you had the face of fortune. You couldn't possibly die young. Oh, I've missed you so much these past 3 years. Where have you been? It's so good that you're back. Come back to me." Smack! A sharp, dry sound echoed through the suddenly silent hall. Mia had violently slapped Sharon's hand away. She hadn't struck her, but the gesture was filled with such profound disgust it was as if she had just touched something infectious and foul. Mia pulled a silk handkerchief from her clutch, meticulously wiped the fingers that had made contact, and let the handkerchief drop to the floor. "You've mistaken me for someone else," Mia said coldly, without blinking. "I don't have a mother, and I certainly don't have the kind of mother-in-law who would force her 6-month pregnant daughter-in-law out onto the street to die. Save that title for your precious new daughter-in-law beside you." Sharon froze, her face flushing crimson then turning purple with public humiliation. Tiffany couldn't take it anymore. She slammed the table and shot up, pointing a finger at Mia. "What's with the attitude? Don't think wearing some designer clothes makes you a princess. You're still just a fishmonger at heart. How dare you be rude to your mother-in-law?" Mia turned, her sharp gaze raking over Tiffany from head to toe. She sneered. "And who are you? The waitress for this table? Or the mistress who's been promoted but still hasn't learned how to behave like a civilized person?" "You!" Tiffany choked, trembling with rage. "Kevin," Mia called softly. "Yes, ma'am." Kevin appeared instantly behind her. "This guest seems to have lost her composure, and it's affecting the party's atmosphere. Please review the guest list. I recall Apex only inviting distinguished partners, not people who lack basic etiquette." Kevin nodded and signaled to 2 towering security guards. Seeing the situation escalate, Frank Monroe quickly stood up to intervene. He knew if his daughter was thrown out now, Monroe Construction would lose all face and, more importantly, any chance of a partnership. "Miss Sterling, please, calm down," Frank said with a fawning smile. "My daughter is young and foolish. She doesn't know any better. Please forgive her. I am Frank Monroe, Director of Monroe Construction. We greatly admire your talent and hope to collaborate on the Serenity Grand project." Mia looked at Frank, her eyes showing a flicker of calculation. She knew this old fox well, an opportunist who would sell his soul for profit. Every project Monroe Construction handled was notorious for cutting corners and using substandard materials. It was his money that had enabled Ethan to abandon her, but if she kicked them out now, the show couldn't go on. She wanted to give them hope, let them climb as high as possible before kicking the ladder out from under them. Mia smiled, a perfect but soulless social smile. "Ah, Mr. Monroe. I've heard Monroe Construction is quite famous in Miami." Her ambiguous tone made it impossible for him to tell if it was a compliment or a jab. "Very well. Out of respect for you, Mr. Monroe, I will overlook this childish behavior, but I hope there will be no more marketplace brawls at my party." With that, she raised her glass towards Frank in a silent warning, then turned and walked away, leaving Ethan's family standing there, some relieved, some seething with humiliation. Frank turned and slapped Tiffany hard across the face. "Shut your mouth! Do you want to get us all killed? Do you know who she is? She's the investor. If you ruin my business deal, I'll throw both you and your husband out on the street." Tiffany clutched her cheek, tears welling in her eyes, looking resentfully from her father to her husband. Ethan could only hang his head in silence. He was afraid of Mia and afraid of his father-in-law. He realized that on this chessboard he was the most useless pawn. The gala was torture for Ethan. He watched Mia move among powerful guests, raising her glass and conversing fluently in English and Spanish. She was brilliant, exuding an intellectual and authoritative beauty he had never seen. He remembered the old days when she would be in the kitchen, the smell of fish stew clinging to her hair. He had despised her then, thinking she was unworthy of him, a construction engineer. But now, the gap between them was a chasm. He was just a grain of sand beneath her feet. Yet, a vile thought began to fester in his mind. After all, she had once loved him deeply, sacrificed everything for him. Could there still be a flicker of feeling left? Women, no matter how strong, always had a soft spot for their old flames. If he could just find a way to reignite old memories, perhaps he could use her to advance his career. What if he could even ditch Tiffany and become the king beside Queen Chloe Sterling? The thought made Ethan's eyes gleam with greed. He drained his glass, straightened his suit, and decided to find a chance to approach Mia when she was alone. At 10 p.m., as the party wound down, Mia stood on the second-floor balcony of the VIP villa, looking out at the dark sea. The wind blew through her hair, carrying a slight chill. Kevin approached and draped a thin shawl over her shoulders. "Everything is proceeding as you predicted, ma'am. Old Man Monroe is trying everything to submit his bid tomorrow morning. He even tried to bribe our project manager for a private meeting with you." Mia pulled the shawl tighter and sipped her hot tea. "Accept his bid, but make the terms as stringent as possible. Require a 30% contract value security deposit just to participate. And tell him Apex needs a contractor with extremely strong financial backing to guarantee the timeline." "You plan to bleed him dry, ma'am?" Kevin asked, his voice full of admiration. "I'm not bleeding him. I'm teaching him a lesson about greed," Mia replied, her eyes cold. "He'll use all his capital, even take out loans from sharks, to chase this project. When his pockets are empty, that's when I'll cut the rope. And your ex-husband? He's lurking downstairs, looks like he wants to see you." Mia sneered. "Let him come up. I'm curious to see what kind of act he'll put on." 5 minutes later, Ethan was escorted to the balcony. He walked timidly, nervously fidgeting with his jacket, his face a mask of feigned remorse and longing. When he saw Mia leaning against the railing, the silvery moonlight casting a solitary yet fatally alluring halo around her, Ethan swallowed hard. "Mia?" he called softly. Mia didn't turn around. Her voice was flat. "You have 3 minutes. Speak before I have security throw you into the pool." Ethan flinched and took a step closer. "Mia, I know you hate me. I deserve it. For the past 3 years, I haven't had a single peaceful night's sleep. I thought you were gone. If I had known you were alive, I would have searched everywhere for you." "Searched for me? For what?" Mia turned, crossing her arms. "To ask for the funeral money back? Or to make sure I was really dead?" "No! Don't say that!" Ethan dropped to his knees, a classic move he used whenever he messed up in the past. He looked up at her, his eyes welling with tears. "I was forced. My mother, Tiffany's father. They forced me. I was weak, a coward, but what I felt for you was real. Look at me. For 3 years, I've been living like a soulless corpse next to Tiffany. I'm not happy." Mia looked down at the man kneeling at her feet. In the past, whenever he knelt to apologize for coming home drunk or for hitting her, she would always soften and forgive. She had mistaken it for sincerity, but now, through the lens of maturity and pain, she saw only a spineless, pathetic man, willing to sell his dignity for personal gain. "You said you were forced," Mia repeated, her voice deceptively gentle. Thinking she was starting to relent, Ethan nodded vigorously. Yes, they forced me. You know it. I'm just a lowly engineer. How could I fight against their power? Now that you're so successful, you can save me. I'll leave Tiffany. I'll be your dog, your slave. Can we start over, Mia?" He spoke as he tried to reach for her bare foot, visible beneath the slit of her dress. Mia stepped back, the feigned pity in her eyes vanishing, replaced by naked disgust. "Start over?" She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the night. "Ethan, who do you think I am? The same foolish Mia from before?" She bent down, her face close to his, and whispered, "You want a chance? Fine, I'll give you a chance." Ethan's eyes lit up. "Really, Mia? Tomorrow, have your father-in-law bring $50 million to deposit as security for the Serenity Grand project. If Monroe Construction wins the bid, I'll consider forgiving you." $50 million? Ethan gaped. That was an astronomical sum, the entirety of Monroe Construction's capital and mortgaged assets. What's wrong? Is your love only worth empty words? Mia stood up straight, dusting off her hands as if shaking off dirt. "If you can't do it, then get out of my sight. And remember, don't ever let me see you lurking around here again. Otherwise, it won't just be a wine glass that breaks, it'll be the livelihood of your entire family." Ethan shakily got to his feet. He understood what Mia meant. This was a gamble. If Monroe Construction won this billion-dollar project, $50 million would be a small price, and he would have it all. Wealth, status, and perhaps even Chloe Sterling's forgiveness. But if they lost? I'll try. Wait for my news, Ethan said, then shuffled away, his mind already scheming how to convince his father-in-law to mortgage everything. He had no idea he was digging his own grave, and the grave of his new family. Mia watched his retreating back, her eyes as cold as the night dew. Kevin. Yes, ma'am. Prepare the legal documents. As soon as Monroe Construction transfers the deposit, activate the contract's breach clause regarding their past performance failures. I want Monroe Construction to declare bankruptcy within a month, and that $50 million will be frozen indefinitely. Understood, ma'am. A ruthless move, Kevin commented, but there was no criticism in his voice, only obedience. Ruthless? Mia looked up at the moon. Compared to killing an unborn child and leaving your wife for dead, what is this little bit of money? She placed a hand over her lower abdomen, where the scar from the emergency surgery still ached whenever the weather turned. My child, she thought. Watch Mommy collect this debt for you. The atmosphere at Apex Global was tense. Contractors lined up to submit their bids, but top priority was given to Monroe Construction. Following Chloe's unspoken directive, Frank Monroe and Ethan entered the VIP conference room, carrying briefcases, their faces a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Mia sat at the head of the table, spinning a Mont Blanc pen. Today she wore a pristine white pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a high ponytail, looking sharp and dynamic. Good morning, Miss Sterling, esteemed executives. Frank Monroe bowed, his shirt already damp with sweat. Last night, Ethan had spun a tale of Mia's lingering feelings, claiming this was a test, that the project was a gold mine. Frank, with his bottomless greed, had decided to bet the farm. He had mortgaged his mansion, his land on Star Island, and even borrowed from loan sharks to scrape together the $50 million in cash. Please, have a seat. Mia gestured to the chairs opposite her. I've reviewed your company's profile. Monroe Construction has experience, but your scale is smaller than what AGP requires. However, she paused, glancing at Ethan, who sat meekly beside his father-in-law. He looked at her with pleading eyes. I appreciate your enthusiasm, especially from Mr. Hayes here, a very dedicated employee. Frank Monroe beamed. Yes, my son-in-law is very passionate. He said Miss Sterling is a fair person who values talent. All right, let's get straight to the point. Mia pushed a thick contract across the table. This is the preliminary agreement. Clause 8. Party B. Monroe Construction will deposit $50 million into a designated escrow account immediately upon signing to guarantee performance. If there are any delays or violations of any technical standards outlined in the appendix, this amount will be forfeited in its entirety. Frank picked up the pen, his hand shaking slightly. $50 million was a huge sum. Miss Sterling, this violation clause seems a bit strict, doesn't it? Technical standards can be so subjective. Are you scared, Mr. Monroe? Mia raised an eyebrow, her tone challenging. AGP is an international corporation. We operate on a 6-star standard. If you're not confident in your abilities, you can withdraw right now. There are dozens of contractors out there waiting to pay the deposit. Seeing his father-in-law hesitate, Ethan nudged him. Sign it, Dad. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Miss Sterling promised she'd make things easier for us. Frank looked from his son-in-law to the powerful, implicitly promising gaze of Mia. Greed won over fear. He gritted his teeth and signed his name with a flourish. Fine. I'm all in. Mia watched the signature on the paper, a faint smile playing on her lips. The scratch of the pen sounded as sweet as music. It was the sound of the gates of hell opening for his family. Congratulations, Mr. Monroe. The funds must be in the account by noon today. She stood, shook his hand perfunctorily, then turned to Ethan. And congratulations to you, Ethan. You've completed your mission perfectly. Ethan grinned foolishly, thinking he was being praised. He didn't realize the mission Mia referred to was that of a sacrificial pawn leading his entire clan to their doom. As the conference room door closed behind them, Mia turned to Kevin. Call the building inspectors and the market regulation authorities. Send them the evidence of Monroe Construction using counterfeit materials on the Seville Hotel project last month. And notify the bank to prepare for debt collection as soon as things go south. Yes, Your Majesty. Kevin smiled, closing his laptop. The real Game of Thrones on this island was just beginning. Mia stepped out onto the balcony, looking down at the bustling city below. The sea breeze billowed her white jacket. She was like a seagull that had survived a hurricane, strong, free, and with claws ready to hunt. 1 p.m., Joe's Stone Crab, one of the most iconic restaurants in Miami. The VIP room was alive with celebration. The clinking of glasses and loud laughter drowned out the sound of the waves outside. Frank Monroe, his face flushed with alcohol, stood up with a glass of expensive brandy. A toast to Monroe Construction for landing the contract of the century, and to my dear son-in-law, Ethan, for his great contribution. This $50 million deposit is just a shrimp. When this project is done, we'll be catching a $500 million lobster. Cheers. Cheers to the boss. Cheers to Ethan. The key employees and relatives cheered along, ecstatic as if they had just won the lottery. Ethan sat beside his father-in-law, his face glowing with the intoxication of victory. He loosened his tie, feeling on top of the world. He glanced at Tiffany beside him. She was wearing a brand new set of jewelry, a triumphant smirk on her face. "See? I told you," she whispered in his ear, her boozy breath hitting his face. "That Mia is still hung up on you. She's just playing hard to get. Every woman has a soft spot for an old flame. All you had to do was sweet-talk her a bit, play the victim, and she folded. Now that Monroe has the contract, the money's rolling in, our reputation is soaring. We're set for life." Ethan nodded, a secret contempt for Mia swelling within him. Foolish woman, he thought. So what if she's rich and glamorous? In the end, I still led her by the nose. He promised himself that after this was over, he'd find a way to kick Mia out of the project and seize control. Then he'd show her what it meant to be double-crossed. Sharon sat across from them, happily cracking open a crab claw, her smile never fading. "That's my son, a true genius. I always said this family's fortune is all thanks to Ethan's good karma. 50 million. Frank and Tiffany are brave, but high risk, high reward." The family was lost in a drunken haze of illusory victory. They had no idea that at the very moment they raised their glasses, on the other side of the banking system, an account freeze had just been activated. And on social media, a media storm was beginning to gather, as dark and fierce as the storm that had washed away Mia's life years ago. 2:30 p.m. Frank Monroe's phone on the table began to ring incessantly. The shrill, urgent sound shattered the joyous atmosphere. Frank frowned at the caller ID. It was his chief accountant. "Hello? What's so important you have to call now?" "We're celebrating," Frank barked. A panicked, distorted voice came from the other end. Sir, we're finished. We're really finished." "What's finished? What are you talking about?" Frank yelled, silencing the room. "The account. The $50 million we transferred to the bank for the AGP guarantee. It's been frozen. The bank said there's an emergency freeze order due to suspicion of illicit funds and a breach of the credit agreement." "What?" Frank shot up from his chair, knocking it over. "What the hell are you saying? That was loan money, mortgage money. How could it be illicit?" Before he could recover, Ethan's phone also buzzed violently. It was a friend who worked as a journalist. "Ethan? Dude, get online. Now. Your father-in-law's company is on the front page. That Seville hotel balcony collapse from last month? They found evidence that Monroe Construction used fake rebar and concrete mixed with sea sand. The Economic Crimes Unit is on it. They're heading to your office to search the place right now." After hearing the news, the phone slipped from Ethan's hand, crashing onto a plate of lobster. His face turned from red to deathly white, then to a ghastly ashen gray. Dad, Ethan stammered, pointing at the wall-mounted TV broadcasting the afternoon news. On the screen, a grim-faced anchor read the breaking story. "We have breaking news. Authorities have just uncovered severe misconduct in the construction of the Seville Hotel, built by Monroe Construction. Forensic analysis has revealed that all structural steel was counterfeit and of unknown origin. This case is sending shockwaves through Miami's real estate community." The company had just signed a partnership with Apex Global for the billion-dollar Serenity Grand project. The broadcast switched to live footage of Monroe Construction's headquarters being sealed off by police. Frank stared at the screen, his eyes bulging, his hand clutching his chest. He tried to speak, but only garbled sounds came out. A massive stroke sent him staggering, and he collapsed onto the cold floor. "Dad! Dad!" Tiffany screamed, rushing to her father's side. "Call an ambulance! Somebody call an ambulance!" The room descended into chaos. Sharon wailed hysterically. Ethan was frozen to the spot, a cold sweat drenching him. He understood. He understood everything. Clause 8 of the contract. He vaguely remembered a tiny line in the appendix. Party A, AGP, has the right to unilaterally terminate the contract and forfeit the entire security deposit if Party B, Monroe Construction, becomes embroiled in any legal scandals that severely damage the project's brand reputation. It was a trap, a perfect trap, set from the very beginning. The $50 million was gone. While the Monroe family was in chaos, rushing Frank to the hospital, Mia was taking a leisurely stroll through the Serenity Grand construction site, inspecting the progress. She wore a white hard hat with a gold-plated Apex logo, a fitted beige jumpsuit, and high-heeled leather boots. She looked less like she was on a site inspection and more like she was doing a high-fashion photo shoot amidst the concrete and steel. Kevin walked beside her, his tablet constantly updating. "Ma'am, Mr. Monroe has been hospitalized with a stroke. The prognosis is not good. The bank has already moved to seize his mortgaged assets, including his mansion and 2 prime lots. And those loan sharks he borrowed the $50 million from? They're on their way to the hospital now." Mia stopped in front of a pile of construction materials. Monroe Construction had delivered that morning for show. She lightly kicked a bag of cement with the toe of her boot. "This cement," she said calmly, "is only good for building a pigsty. If you build a 6-star resort with it, it's bound to collapse." "Yes, and that's precisely why we have grounds to activate the additional penalty clauses," Kevin replied with a smile. "Your planning is flawless, ma'am. I thought you would use emotional torment against him, but you went straight for his finances. For people like them, the pain of losing money is worse than being stabbed." Mia turned, the sea breeze catching her brown hair. She gazed into the distance, towards Miami-Dade General Hospital. "Kevin, do you know why I chose this path? Because you wanted them to be bankrupt?" "Not just bankrupt." Mia shook her head. "I wanted them to taste the feeling of soaring to the highest peak of hope, only to be plunged into the deepest abyss of despair. The fall from a great height is 1,000 times more painful than crawling on the ground. When I was pregnant, they gave me hope for a family, and then they smashed it to pieces. Now, I'm just returning the favor." She took off her sunglasses, revealing sharp eyes tinged with a hint of fatigue. "Carry on. Send out the press release. Apex Global is officially terminating its contract with Monroe Construction. We're suing them for fraudulent misrepresentation and brand damage. Demand another $20 million in compensation." "Another $20 million? Ma'am, you're driving them to their deaths. Life or death is a choice they made themselves. If they had done business honestly, if they hadn't been so greedy, if they hadn't used fake materials, my trap would have been useless. They walked into it themselves." 7 p.m. that evening, Miami-Dade General Hospital. The hallway of the emergency ward was as chaotic as a street market, not with the cries of concerned family members, but with the curses and threats of debt collectors. "Where's Ethan Hayes? Where's that Tiffany bitch? Get out here and pay up!" a heavily tattooed man yelled, banging a baseball bat against a hospital room door. Tiffany cowered in a corner, her hair a mess, all traces of her former arrogance gone. Sharon was hiding under Frank Monroe's hospital bed, trembling uncontrollably. Ethan stood in the doorway, his face bruised from a few punches he'd taken at the entrance. "Please be calm. My father-in-law is in critical condition. The money, we'll pay you back," he pleaded, his voice cracking with fear. "Pay us back with what? Your good intentions? $50 million, plus the daily vig. How are you going to pay that?" The leader grabbed Ethan by the collar and lifted him up. "I heard your father-in-law's company is bankrupt. All his assets are seized by the bank. The only thing I can take now is your lives to settle the debt." "No, please don't." Tiffany scrambled out, kneeling and hugging the man's leg. "Please, spare my family. I have my husband. He's a great engineer. He'll work to pay you back." "An engineer?" The leader scoffed, spitting on the floor. I heard Apex kick this loser to the curb, and he's been blacklisted in the entire construction industry for aiding and abetting fraud. Not even a dog would hire him now. He kicked his leg out, sending Tiffany sprawling backward. Her head hit the edge of the bed, and blood began to flow. "Tiffany!" Ethan screamed, trying to rush to her side, but two thugs held him back. Just then, the familiar click of stiletto heels echoed from the end of the hall. The sound, strangely, had enough authority to make the enraged gangsters pause. A group of tall, imposing bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses appeared, parting the crowd. In the center, walking calmly, was Mia. She wore the same elegant outfit from earlier, now with a long black trench coat draped over her shoulders. She looked like a mafia boss. The gangster leader squinted. "Who's this? You looking for trouble?" Mia didn't answer him. She walked past the chaos and straight into the hospital room. She took in the scene of devastation. Frank Monroe unconscious in the bed, hooked up to a web of tubes. Sharon crawling out from under the bed. Tiffany on the floor, crying with a bloody head. And Ethan, held like a cornered dog. "Well, this is lively," Mia said, her voice light, but it sent a chill through the room. Ethan saw her, and it was like seeing a life raft. He struggled and screamed, "Mia! Mia! Save me! Save my family! You're so rich! What's 50 million to you? Please, pay it for me! I'm begging you! I'll get on my knees!" Mia turned to the gang leader and asked casually, "How much?" The leader, sensing this woman was not to be trifled with, especially with her professional security detail, softened his tone. "With interest, it's 52 million as of today. You plan on paying for him?" Mia smiled and pulled a thick stack of envelopes from her purse. Ethan and Tiffany's eyes lit up with a flicker of hope, but Mia didn't hand the money to the gangster. She walked up to Ethan and one by one threw $100 bills in his face. The green notes fluttered down onto the dirty hospital floor. "Here's $5,000 for Mr. Monroe's hospital bills. Consider it my final act of charity for the man who was almost my father-in-law." Then she turned to the gang leader. "As for the $52 million debt, that has nothing to do with me. You can do what you need to do, just try not to commit murder inside the hospital. I just came by to inspect the results." "What?" Ethan was stunned. You came here just to laugh at me?" "No." Mia shook her head, her gaze as sharp as a dagger plunging into his heart. "I came to tell you a few truths. The person who sent the evidence about the Seville Hotel to the police? That was me. The person who put the $50 million penalty clause in the contract? Also me. And the person who bought up Monroe Construction's bad debt from the bank for pennies on the dollar so I can be the one to foreclose on the house you're living in? Still me." Every word was a sledgehammer blow to Ethan's head. He crumpled to his knees, completely broken. "Why? Why are you so cruel? Do you want to kill my entire family?" he screamed in despair. Mia bent down and whispered in his ear, just loud enough for him to hear. "Cruel? Compared to you leaving your wife and child to die on the side of the road, what I've done today is merciful. I only took your money. You took the life of my child. A debt of blood can never be repaid with money." She stood up straight, adjusted her coat, and turned to leave. "Let's go, Kevin. The stench of failure in here is overwhelming." "Yes, ma'am." Mia walked out of the room, leaving behind the desperate sobs of Tiffany, the curses of Sharon, and the pathetic pleas of Ethan, all mixed with the sickening thuds of the debt collector's fists. Sitting in the Maybach, as it pulled away from the hospital, Mia didn't feel the triumph she expected. Instead, an unfamiliar emptiness filled her. Revenge was done. So what? Would her child come back to life? Would the scars on her heart ever heal? She looked out the window as it began to rain. The heavy drops streaked down the glass, blurring the city lights, just like on that fateful night 3 years ago. "Kevin, don't go back yet. Drive to the old beach in Homestead," Mia ordered, her voice hoarse. "But ma'am, it's pouring." "Just go." The car stopped at the deserted beach. Mia got out, ignoring Kevin as he ran after her with an umbrella. She walked barefoot on the wet sand, letting the rain soak her designer clothes and wash away her makeup. She stood before the vast, roaring ocean and let out a single, piercing scream. The scream tore from her lungs, releasing all the pain and grief she had suppressed for 3 long years. "My baby! Mommy did it! I made them pay! But why does it still hurt so much? Why do I still miss you so much?" She collapsed onto the sand, sobbing, her tears mixing with the salty rain. The powerful, cold businesswoman was gone, leaving only a grieving mother, a betrayed wife, utterly alone in the world. Just then, a warm coat was unexpectedly draped over her shoulders. A strong hand grasped her arm and pulled her to her feet. Startled, Mia turned. Through the white sheet of rain, she saw a strange man. He was wearing a white shirt, soaked through and clinging to his muscular frame. He had a rugged face and deep-set eyes that looked at her with concern, but not pity. "Are you done crying? If you are, then get up and move on. The ocean is cold at night. If you die out here, no one's going to avenge you." The man's deep, warm voice cut through the sound of the waves. "Who are you?" Mia asked, defensively stepping back. "Just a passerby," he answered curtly, then pushed a black umbrella into her hand. "Take this. Don't get sick. Your enemies aren't all gone yet. If you fall ill, who's going to continue the fight?" With that, he turned and ran off into the rain, leaving Mia standing stunned with the umbrella and his coat, which still held a strange warmth. She watched his retreating figure. Who was he? Why did he show up here, at this exact moment? And what did he mean? "Your enemies aren't all gone yet?" Her intuition told her this game was not over. The fall of Ethan's family was just the beginning. There was another force, another secret, lurking in the shadows of this city. She gripped the umbrella, her eyes slowly regaining their focus and determination. She wiped her tears and took a deep breath of the cold air. "That's right. I can't fall apart now. The game has just begun." The harsh, tropical sun pierced through the thick hotel curtains, shining directly on Mia's feverish face. She shifted, her body aching as if every joint had been disassembled. The consequences of her night in the rain had arrived swiftly. "You're awake." Kevin entered the room, carrying a steaming bowl of chicken broth and a glass of orange juice, his young face etched with worry. "You had a high fever, ma'am. You were delirious all night, calling out for your child. I was about to call a doctor, but you held my hand so tightly and said you didn't want to see anyone." Mia struggled to sit up, her head spinning. Fragments of last night returned, the sound of the ocean, her own screams, and the warmth of the stranger's coat. Her eyes darted to the sofa. There, a navy blue men's blazer was neatly folded, and beside it, an elegant black umbrella with a wooden handle. "Who was that man?" Mia asked, her voice raspy. Kevin looked confused. "What man, ma'am? When I found you on the beach last night, you were collapsed on the sand, wearing this coat and holding this umbrella. There was no one else around." Mia frowned. Was it a hallucination? No, his warmth was too real. The scent of cedarwood and cool tobacco still lingered faintly in the room. "Never mind," Mia waved her hand, taking the orange juice. "What's the situation outside?" Kevin set the broth down, his expression turning serious. He opened his iPad, swiped through several news sites, and handed it to her. "It's just as you predicted, ma'am. But a cornered animal fights back harder than we thought. Look." On the screen was a live stream with hundreds of thousands of viewers. The star of the video was none other than Tiffany. She sat in a squalid-looking motel room clearly staged with a white, blood-stained bandage wrapped around her head. Her face was swollen, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Beside her, Sharon lay on a thin mat, groaning pitifully. "Everyone, please, save my family!" Tiffany cried, her performance so convincing it would move anyone who didn't know the truth. "That woman, Chloe Sterling, is actually my husband's ex-wife. She came back to destroy my family out of jealousy and old grudges. She used her money and power to frame my father and hired gangsters to beat my husband and me." She sobbed dramatically. "She claims my husband cheated, but the truth is, she was the one who had an affair and got pregnant with another man's child. That's why her mother-in-law threw her out. Now she's hooked up with some foreign tycoon and is using her dirty money to get revenge. Look at us. Our family is ruined." The comment section was a battlefield. One side defended Mia, but a much larger, more vocal group, swayed by the Damsel in Distress Act, began to attack her. So rich, yet so evil. I heard she was a call girl in New York. Boycott Apex. Boycott the Serenity Grand. Mia scanned the vicious comments, her expression unchanged. She put the iPad down and calmly began to eat her broth. "Aren't you angry, ma'am?" Kevin asked anxiously. "They're twisting the truth, slandering your name. AGP's stock took a slight dip this morning." "Angry?" Mia gave a small, humorless laugh. "Kevin, how long have you been in PR and you're still this naive? In the court of public opinion, the one who cries the loudest often wins. But only in the short term." She finished her food, feeling some strength return. She stood up and walked to the bathroom. "Get the car ready. I have a board meeting at 10. But you're sick." "I'm sick, not dead." Mia paused in front of the mirror, looking at her own sharp reflection. "More importantly, I want to see who's pulling the strings on this little puppet, Tiffany. She's not smart enough to hire a professional social media smearing campaign on her own." The atmosphere in the Apex Global boardroom was as taut as a bowstring. All the major shareholders were present, each one eyeing Mia with suspicion and displeasure. "Miss Sterling, we need an explanation," an older shareholder said, tapping the table. "Your personal scandal is directly impacting the corporation's image. AGP cannot be associated with rumors of hiring gangsters and bullying." "He's right. If you can't contain this crisis within 24 hours, we will be forced to reconsider your position as project CEO," another added. Mia sat at the head of the table, her back straight. Though her head still throbbed, her commanding presence dominated the room. "Gentlemen, please rest assured. This is nothing but a clumsy piece of theater. My legal team is already gathering evidence of defamation. There will be an official press release this afternoon." "A press release? Who's going to believe it when she's playing the victim so convincingly?" The boardroom door suddenly swung open. A man walked in. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, his tall frame and natural air of authority commanding the attention of everyone in the room, including Mia. It was him, the man from the beach. Mia froze. Gone was the rugged, rain-soaked stranger. The man before her now was polished, cool, and exuded a dangerous aura. "My apologies for being late," he said, his deep voice resonating through the room. He ignored everyone else and walked straight to the empty chair beside Mia, the seat reserved for the new senior strategic advisor appointed by the parent company, whom she had yet to meet. He pulled out the chair, sat down, and turned to Mia, the corner of his mouth twitching into a barely perceptible smile. "Hello, Miss Sterling. Or should I say, the girl who likes to cry in the rain." Mia quickly regained her composure, hiding her shock. "You are everyone." The chairman's voice came through the video conference screen. "This is Damian Blackwood, our new strategic advisor. He represents Stonebridge Capital Partners, the new strategic investor who funded the project this morning." A murmur went through the room. Stonebridge Capital was a titan in the investment world. Damian's presence meant AGP's position was stronger than ever. Damian nodded to the room and placed a file on the table. "Regarding the PR crisis you're all so worried about, I've already handled half of it." He signaled his assistant to turn on the projector. A flowchart of financial transactions and recovered text messages appeared on the screen. "The person pulling Tiffany Monroe's strings is none other than our main competitor, Titan Realty. They paid her $500,000 to stage this drama and tarnish AGP's reputation right before our grand opening." Damian used a laser pointer to highlight a name. "And this man, Leo Vance, Titan's marketing director, is the one who transferred the money and sent Tiffany the script." The room was silent. Mia turned to Damian, her eyes filled with surprise and admiration. She had suspected a third party, but she never imagined this newcomer could uncover the truth so quickly and precisely. "Why did you help me?" she whispered. Damian turned to look deeply into her eyes. They were so close she could smell the familiar scent of cedarwood from the night before. "I'm not helping you," he replied, just loud enough for her to hear. "I'm protecting my investment, and I don't like seeing women cry. Especially stubborn ones like you." His half-joking, half-serious words made Mia's heart skip a beat. "So what's your next move?" she asked, her professional demeanor returning. "To kill a snake, you have to crush its head." Damian stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Miss Sterling, we will hold a press conference this afternoon. You won't have to say a word of defense. You just need to sit there, look beautiful and powerful. Leave the unmasking of vermin to me. The press conference was organized hastily, but was a massive event. Hundreds of reporters swarmed the venue. The Pearl Queen versus ex-husband drama was the hottest topic on social media. Mia entered the room with Damien by her side. The appearance of the power couple set off a storm of camera flashes. Mia took the center seat. She wore a simple white dress, minimal makeup, and no extravagant jewelry, projecting an image of elegance and innocence, a stark contrast to the evil woman persona Tiffany was peddling. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," Damien began, "we are not here today to argue with baseless rumors. We are here to present the truth." The large screen behind them lit up, not with boring statements, but with a video. It was security footage from a quiet cafe. In the video, Tiffany, clearly uninjured, was accepting a thick wad of cash from a man. The audio was crystal clear. "Just get online, cry, play the victim, and blame everything on Chloe Sterling," the man said. "Make sure you look pathetic. The more pathetic, the better. Here's 200 grand as a down payment. Mr. Vance will send the rest when the job is done." Tiffany, in the video, grinned from ear to ear as she counted the money. "Don't you worry. I hate that woman to my core. I'll act my heart out and ruin her. Oh, and can you ask Titan Realty to save a security guard spot for my husband? We're broke." The room erupted. Live streams of the event went viral, and online comments began to flip dramatically. "Oh my God, it was all an act. That is low. Once a mistress, always a mistress. So sorry, Miss Sterling. We misjudged you." Damien then presented the second piece of evidence: medical records from the hospital. A forensic doctor's report concluded that the injuries on Tiffany were self-inflicted or caused by minor household accidents, not a brutal assault as she claimed. The blood on her bandage was revealed to be diluted red food coloring. Laughter filled the room. It was a humiliating public slap in the face for Tiffany's clumsy performance. Finally, Mia took the microphone. She looked directly into the cameras, her gaze unwavering. "My silence was not an admission of guilt. It was to allow the true faces of the greedy to be revealed. I, Mia Collins, was once a victim of domestic abuse and betrayal. I understand that pain better than anyone, which is why I would never resort to such despicable methods to deal with anyone." She paused, her voice becoming steely. Immediately following this press conference, AGP's legal team will file a lawsuit against Tiffany Monroe and all associated parties for defamation and slander. And this time, there will be no mercy. The press conference ended in a decisive victory for Mia. She had not only cleared her name but had turned a crisis into an opportunity to affirm her and her company's integrity. In the waiting room, Mia turned to Damien. "Thank you. Without you, it would have taken me much longer to clean up this mess." Damien leaned against the wall, his hands in his pockets, looking at her with a meaningful gaze. "No thanks needed. You owe me dinner." He pointed to the blazer she was holding, the one he had given her. "And have that cleaned before you return it. It's one of my favorites." Mia laughed, a genuine, heartfelt laugh for the first time in days. "All right, I'll hand wash it, press it perfectly, and deliver it to the esteemed advisor's room myself. I'll be waiting." Damien turned to leave, but in his solitary silhouette, Mia sensed a familiar loneliness, a soul searching for a kindred spirit, just like her. In a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city, Ethan huddled in a dark corner, re-watching the press conference on his cracked phone screen. The light illuminated his gaunt, unshaven face, giving him a haunted look. Outside, Tiffany was screaming and cursing after being evicted for not paying rent. Sharon was now bedridden after the shock of being publicly exposed as a fraud. "It's over. It's all over," Ethan muttered, his voice trembling on the verge of madness. He had lost everything. Career, money, dignity. He was a public laughingstock, and it was all Mia's fault. "It's because of you. It's all because of you that my life is ruined." His eyes turned bloodshot. His initial, pathetic remorse had been consumed by hatred and despair. He wanted revenge. He wanted her to feel 1,000 times the pain he felt. He remembered something Tiffany had drunkenly slurred the night before. "You know what her biggest weakness is? That dead kid. She treats that baby's grave like it's her own life." That's right. The child he had abandoned. Ethan shot to his feet, pulling a sharp paring knife from his pocket. He let out a choked, demented laugh. "Mia, you took my life. I'm going to dig up your child's grave. Let's see how high and mighty you are then." He bolted from the room and disappeared into the night. The next morning, Mia woke early. She wanted to visit the cemetery to leave flowers for her child. Though the Sterlings had arranged for a proper burial, she often went to pray. Damien offered to drive her, saying he wanted to survey the area for a future tourism project. Mia didn't refuse. She felt safer with him by her side. Damien's Land Rover climbed the winding coastal road. "Do you believe in karma?" Mia asked suddenly, gazing out at the blue ocean. "I do," Damien replied, his eyes on the road. "But I also believe that sometimes karma needs a push. Good people get bullied, and evil people destroy themselves. We're just the ones who help balance the scales." Mia nodded, pondering his words. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" A man's wild, familiar laughter crackled through the phone, mixed with the sound of rushing wind. "Hello, ex-wife? Where are you off to? Remember what today is?" Mia's heart seized. "Ethan, what do you want?" "I'm at the cemetery. Your kid's grave is beautiful. Green grass, marble headstone. My, being a rich man's child has its perks." "Ethan, don't you dare do anything stupid. If you touch my child's grave, I will kill you." Mia screamed, her hand shaking so badly she dropped her purse. Damien immediately pulled the car over, looking at her with alarm. "Kill me? Ha! I have nothing left to lose. Listen carefully, Mia. You have 30 minutes to get here, alone, and bring $10 million in cash. If you call the cops, or bring that boyfriend of yours, I will smash this headstone to pieces, dig up the coffin, and throw it in the ocean for the fish. And I mean it." "Don't! I'm begging you. I'll be right there. Just don't touch my baby." Mia burst into tears, her strength completely crumbling. The line went dead. "What happened?" Damien grabbed her shoulders. "Calm down and tell me." He's at my baby's grave. He wants $10 million. He's threatening to destroy it." Mia sobbed, her face ashen. Damien's eyes darkened, flashing with a murderous intent Mia had never seen before. "That bastard," he gritted out. "Get in. We're going." "But he said to come alone." "You go there. I'll have a way. Trust me. Today, I'm going to show him what hell on earth really looks like." Damien slammed his foot on the gas. The SUV roared to life like a savage beast, leaving a trail of dust in its wake. At the quiet hilltop cemetery, Ethan stood beside the small white grave, a crowbar in one hand. He checked his watch, his crazed eyes fixed on the single road leading up the hill. He had no idea this would be the final and greatest mistake of his pathetic life. He had touched a dragon's reverse scale and awakened the demon sleeping inside Damien Blackwood. The Land Rover roared like a wounded animal, tearing through the salty sea air as it sped up the winding road to North Point Cemetery. The speedometer needle shot past 80 miles per hour, but Damien showed no signs of slowing down. In the passenger seat, Mia braced herself, her hands gripping the safety belt so tightly her knuckles were white. Her face was pale, devoid of color. It wasn't the speed that scared her, it was the destination. Her mind was filled with the image of her child's small grave, the only resting place for her angel being desecrated by its own crazed father. "Stay calm." Damien's deep voice cut through the oppressive silence. He didn't look at her, his eyes still fixed on the dangerous hairpin turns ahead, but he reached over and covered Mia's cold, trembling hand with his own. The warmth from his large, calloused hand was like an electric current, a steady anchor holding her back from the storm of emotions threatening to pull her under. "You don't understand," Mia trembled, tears streaming down her face. "He's lost his mind. He hates me. He'll do it. If my child's grave is destroyed, I can't live." "I understand," Damien said curtly, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 sorrows. "And I promise you, as long as I am standing there, he will not touch a single speck of dust on that headstone." Mia turned to look at him. His profile was granite hard, his jaw clenched, his deep eyes streaked with red. She had never seen him so enraged. It wasn't a loud, flashy anger, but a deep, simmering fury, like lava beneath a volcano, waiting to erupt and incinerate everything in its path. The car screeched to a halt at the cemetery gates. Mia tried to jump out, but Damien held her back. "Listen to me," he said, his gaze sharp and commanding. "He's armed and unstable. You will not get within 15 feet of him. Let me do the talking." "But he asked for me." "You stand where he can see you, but you do not get within reach of that crowbar. Do you understand?" The authority in his voice made her nod unconsciously. They got out of the car. The wind on the hill was strong, carrying the chill of the graveyard and the mournful whisper of the pines. About 50 yards away, next to a small grave of white marble, stood Ethan. He looked more pathetic than ever, shirt torn, hair matted, eyes sunken and hollow. In his hand, he held a rusty crowbar, its tip resting on the nameless headstone. Seeing Mia, Ethan let out a wild, cackling laugh that echoed across the desolate hill. "You came! I knew you couldn't abandon this little burden." He raised the crowbar threateningly. "Where's the money? Where's my $10 million? Mia walked forward, her legs shaking, stopping at the safe distance Damien had instructed. Her voice was choked with tears. "Ethan, please, calm down. I can give you the money. Just put the crowbar down. That's your child." "My child?" Ethan screamed, his face contorted with rage. "It's dead. It was just a lump of blood. Don't you dare preach morality to me. My life is ruined because you got pregnant with it. If you had just gotten an abortion, if you had just divorced me sooner, my mother wouldn't have pushed me. Tiffany's family wouldn't have tricked me." His cruel words were daggers in Mia's heart. She couldn't believe the man she once loved could say such monstrous things about his own flesh and blood. You're an animal," she cried out. "An animal? Yeah, I am. So what?" Ethan's eyes bulged as he swung the crowbar wildly. "I've lost everything. My company, my house, my wife, my mother is paralyzed. I have nothing left to lose. Today, I get the money, or you'll all pay." He glared at Damien, who stood silently behind Mia. "Who's he? I told you to come alone. Did you bring your new boyfriend to laugh at me?" Damien took a step forward, shielding Mia. He said nothing. He simply took off his Patek Philippe watch, worth a small fortune, and tossed it onto the grass. Then he slowly removed his blazer, loosened his tie, and rolled up his sleeves, revealing muscular forearms etched with veins. His movements were calm, deliberate, and terrifying. What are you doing?" Ethan stammered, backing away. "I'm here to teach you one final lesson," Damien said, his voice ice cold. "A lesson on being a father." "Don't come any closer. I'll smash it," Ethan shrieked, raising the crowbar to strike the grave. "No!" Mia screamed, lunging forward, but Damien was faster. In the split second that the crowbar began its descent, Damien moved like a blur. He executed a perfect roundhouse kick, slamming his foot into Ethan's wrist. Crack! Ethan screamed in agony as the crowbar flew from his grasp, clattering on the stone path. Before he could react, Damien grabbed him by the collar and slammed him to the ground. Ethan tried to fight back, but Damien was on top of him, his knee pinning Ethan's chest, knocking the wind out of him. "You like money, huh?" Thwack! A brutal punch landed squarely on Ethan's face, sending blood spurting from his nose. "You like threatening women?" Thwack! A second punch, harder than the first, connected with his cheekbone. "You like desecrating the graves of children?" Thwack! 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 Damien became a vessel of pure, controlled rage, raining down punches on Ethan's face. Each blow was a release of fury, not just for Mia, but for a deep, hidden pain of his own. Ethan, who had started by struggling and cursing, soon went limp, his face a swollen, bloody mess. Mia stood frozen, horrified. This wasn't the sophisticated advisor she knew. This was a warrior dispensing brutal justice. But when she saw Ethan start to convulse, she rushed forward and grabbed Damien's arm. "Damien, stop! You'll kill him. Don't ruin your life over trash like him." Her voice, her touch, broke through his rage. His fist stopped inches from Ethan's face. His chest heaved, and the red haze in his eyes slowly receded as he looked at Mia's tear-streaked face. He let go of Ethan and stood up, coldly brushing the dust from his pants. Ethan lay on the ground, gasping for air, a broken, bloody heap. "Get out," Damien said, his voice low and deadly. "If I ever see you near here again, I won't use my fists. I'll bury you myself." Just then, the wail of police sirens grew closer. Kevin had called them the moment they left. 2 cruisers sped up the hill, and officers quickly subdued the unresponsive Ethan, cuffing him and hauling him away. As they shoved him into the car, he shot one last look at Mia, a look of hatred, but also of pure terror. The cemetery was quiet again. Mia knelt by her child's grave, her trembling hands wiping away the dirty footprints Ethan had left on the marble. Her tears fell, soaking into the earth. "Mommy's sorry. I'm so sorry I let him disturb your sleep." Damien came and knelt beside her. He said nothing, simply taking out his own handkerchief and gently wiping the remaining smudges from the headstone. It began to rain, a sudden downpour. They took shelter under the eaves of the groundskeeper's shed. Their clothes were disheveled and muddy, but the silence between them was comfortable and peaceful. Damien lit a cigarette, the smoke veiling his sad eyes. "Why were you so angry?" Mia finally asked. "It felt like you hated him even more than I do." He was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know why I invested in this project, in this city?" Mia shook her head. 5 years ago, Damien began, his voice heavy, "I had a family. My wife was a kind schoolteacher. We had a 4-year-old daughter. One night, they went out to buy a birthday cake. On the way home, they were hit by a drunk driver." His hand holding the cigarette trembled. He was a rich kid, just like Ethan in his prime. After he hit them, he didn't stop. He sped off. My wife and daughter bled out on that cold road. Mia gasped, her own tears returning. She never imagined the powerful, stoic man beside her carried such a tragic past. "By the time I got there, it was too late," Damien said with a bitter laugh. "I used all my money and power to make sure that person rotted in prison, but it didn't bring them back. Since then, I've had a special hatred for cowardly, irresponsible men who hurt women and children." He turned to her, his eyes soft with empathy. 3 years ago, when I happened to hear Mr. Sterling tell your story, I saw my wife in you. But you were luckier. You survived. You've known about me for 3 years?" Mia was stunned. "Yes, Stonebridge Capital has been watching AGP for a while, but the real reason I pushed for the investment and came here myself was to meet you. I wanted to see if the woman who clawed her way back from hell had the strength to get her own justice, and you did not disappoint." He gave her a rare, sad smile. "You're stronger than I ever imagined." "But Mia, being strong doesn't mean you have to carry everything alone. It's okay to lean on someone else's shoulder sometimes." Mia looked at him, and the heart she thought had frozen solid 3 years ago began to melt. She realized Damien's appearance in her life wasn't a coincidence. He was her counterpart in grief, the one person in the world who could truly understand her loss. In that moment, she did something that surprised even herself. She leaned over and rested her head on his strong, steady shoulder. He tensed for a second, then wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. They said nothing more, 2 wounded souls finding solace in each other amidst the storms of life. A week later, Ethan Hayes stood trial. The courtroom was packed. Ethan, his head shaved, looked like a broken old man. Tiffany was there, but as a witness for the prosecution, having turned on him completely to save herself. Sharon was absent, having suffered another stroke that left her permanently disabled and alone in a state-run nursing home. Mia sat in the front row, with Damien beside her. The judge delivered the verdict. For fraud, extortion, desecration of a grave, and assault, Ethan Hayes was sentenced to 20 years in prison and ordered to pay $70 million in damages to Apex Global and Mia Collins. The gavel fell, ending Ethan's life of freedom. As he was led away, he looked at Mia one last time, his eyes filled with a hollow, bottomless regret. Mia watched him go and let out a long, slow breath. The invisible chains to her past had finally been broken. "It's over," Damien whispered. "No," Mia smiled, turning to him. "This is just the beginning of my own life." Later, they walked along the beach as the sun set. "Where will you go now?" Mia asked. Back to New York. My work here is done. The project is stable, and the person who needed protecting can stand on her own now, he said, a hint of sadness in his teasing tone. Mia stopped. You're leaving? What? You want me to stay? He raised an eyebrow. Mia blushed but met his gaze. What if I told you I wanted to hire you as my personal, lifelong bodyguard? The pay is excellent, benefits include room and board, and the heart of the CEO. Damien stared at her, his expression shifting from surprise to a warmth that rivaled the sunset. He stepped closer and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. That's a tempting offer, but I'm a greedy man. I don't just want to be a bodyguard. Then, what do you want to be? He leaned in and pressed a gentle, reverent kiss to her forehead. I want to be the father of your future children, and the man who spends the rest of his life making up for all the pain you've endured. Can I? The sea breeze rustled Mia's dress. She smiled, the brightest, most beautiful smile she had smiled in years, and nodded. Yes. 2 years passed. The Serenity Grand was the crown jewel of Miami, and its CEO, Mia Sterling, was named by Forbes as one of the year's most inspiring entrepreneurs. This morning, Mia woke to the feeling of a tiny kick from within her 5-month pregnant belly. A strong arm wrapped around her. It was Damien. Morning, he whispered, kissing her neck. The most important meeting I have today is taking care of my 2 favorite people. He reminded her what day it was. The day, years ago, she had returned to Miami. The day her past was finally laid to rest. The day they now chose to celebrate their new beginning. In a state penitentiary hundreds of miles away, an inmate named Ethan Hayes, now gaunt and aged beyond his years, watched a news report on the cafeteria TV. It showed Mia and Damien, radiant and happy, announcing a new scholarship for underprivileged children. The report mentioned they were expecting their first child. The remote in Ethan's hand clattered to the floor. The happiness, the family, the life that should have been his, all lost. A single bitter tear traced a path through the grime on his cheek. The iron doors of the prison slid shut, and his world went dark. On a noisy street corner downtown, a disheveled woman hawked lottery tickets to tourists. It was Tiffany. After her father died and the family fortune was gone, this was all she could do to survive. She looked up and saw a giant billboard for the Serenity Grand, featuring Mia's smiling face. A hollow, broken laugh escaped her lips before she shuffled off into a dark alley, back to the dingy room she shared with her paralyzed, bedridden mother-in-law. Karma never forgets an address. Sometimes it just takes its time, so the lesson sinks in deeper. That evening, on a private stretch of beach, Mia and Damien were married in a small, simple ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family, including the Sterlings, who had flown in from New York. There were no grand pronouncements, only quiet vows exchanged between 2 souls who had found each other in the wreckage of their pasts. I thought my heart was dead, Mia said, her hand in his, but you taught me how to love again. You taught me how to live again, Damien replied, his voice thick with emotion as he slipped a ring made of black and white pearls onto her finger. He then knelt and kissed her swollen belly. Hello, little one. We promise to give you the happiest family in the world. Later, they drove to the cemetery. The sky was full of stars. They stood before the small, peaceful grave, now surrounded by fresh flowers. Mia placed her wedding bouquet on the headstone. Hello, my angel, she whispered. Mommy is so happy today, and I want you to meet your new daddy. He's a wonderful man. Damien placed a hand on her shoulder, his presence a warm comfort. Rest easy, little one, he said softly. I'll take care of your mom and your little brother or sister for you. You'll always be our family's guardian angel. Mia leaned her head against his shoulder, tears of release flowing freely. You know, she said, I used to come here filled with so much hate, but today, I feel light. I realize the greatest revenge isn't seeing your enemies suffer. It's seeing yourself happy. When you live your life fully and brightly, the shadows of the past have no choice but to fade away. Damien kissed the top of her head. You're right. Now, let's close this chapter and start writing our new one. As they walked away from the past and toward the glittering city lights, Mia knew her life was like a pearl formed around a grain of painful sand. Through years of being layered with blood and tears, it had finally become something precious and beautiful. Happiness wasn't a destination. It was the journey, a journey of forgiveness, of strength, and of the unwavering belief that after every storm, the sun will, eventually, shine again.